I firmly believe that Peyton Lewis is going to be better than Dylan Sampson, who had a legendary season last year. Tell me I'm crazy, both on the message board or Caleb, you can do so because I tend to play the odds, and the odds are he's not going to be as good as a guy that just had one of the best seasons in Tennessee football history. So if I were to play the odds, which is usually what I do, there's no way. I just see Peyton Lewis, and I think there's a very, very special athlete there. And I don't think Tennessee fans have ever seen it. If I ask you, will Peyton Lewis be horrible, average, good, or all SEC? Which would you choose?
Well, of those, I would choose all SEC. But that's not the standard you said.
Okay.
The standard you said was better than Dylan Sampson. All SEC is not that standard. That is SEC Player of the Year.
I think Peyton Lewis is more talented than Dylan Sampson. Am I right or wrong? I mean, it's a different skill set. Dylan has great vision. He's really good at putting his foot in the ground and making a decision and being determined to run once he has found his lane. I believe Peyton Lewis, if he has that, will be super special. But Dylan Sampson had that at a high level. Lewis is going to be more like Jamal Lewis. That's going to punish opposing defenses, and I would prefer to have the latter. If Dylan Sampson had another year, or you go with Peyton Lewis and you could only have one, I got to be honest with you, man. I'd go Peyton Lewis. And I know that sounds crazy. Steve says Lewis can be an All-American. I'm not ruling that out. I'm that high on him, and I don't want
that still wouldn't match Dylan Sampson yet. So let me say this. I'm somebody who's eating a lot of crow here. I thought Peyton Lewis was going to beat Dylan Sampson out for the starting job this past year, midway through the year. I was wrong. Because there's another factor here. And look, effort does somewhat matter. And I'm not saying Peyton Lewis doesn't give effort, but you brought up Jamal Lewis. I don't think there's any question that Travis Henry was a more productive running back in college than Jamal Lewis, even though Jamal Lewis was a better running back.
Yes.
And that's because Travis Henry ran hard every single play, whereas Jamal Lewis did not. So, and with running backs, when you're thinking about the NFL a lot, you might protect yourself a little more. Dylan Sampson, whatever you want to say about him, Dave, he ran hard last year for Tennessee. Extremely hard.
And I'll say there were times that Peyton Lewis tiptoed a little bit, but I'm not questioning his effort. I think that was because that he was unsure where to go. He didn't know his reads at the snap. So
yes,
I don't think he's tentative.
I'll give you an example for a minute. Another a lesser like extreme one, because Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, like you're talking about goats, but like Arian Foster, Montario Hardesty. Arian Foster was a better running back, but Montario Hardesty ran harder, like a lot harder when he touched the ball than Arian Foster did. And so if you remember, Dave, during that time, everybody wanted Montario Hardesty on the field a lot more than Arian Foster. So with that in mind, I would say Dylan Sampson runs more like Montario Hardesty, but he's fast. I mean, he's got the Alvin Kamara speed. So I'm like, I can't sit there and say that Peyton Lewis is going to be better than a guy like Dylan Sampson, who has speed, who has agility. He doesn't have Peyton Lewis's power, but he runs so hard. I think he makes up for the lack of power that Peyton Lewis has the advantage over him for. And I think he's quicker.
Now, Unsung says Lewis wasn't healthy for the majority of the year, though. Now, take this from a player's mind. He told me he was completely released before the season. Now, that may be an optimistic viewpoint. Deshaun Bishop is the other guy that we haven't mentioned. So who will be Tennessee's leading rusher? Will it be Deshaun Bishop or will it be Peyton Lewis?
Oh, it's going to be Peyton Lewis. And I'm still high on Peyton Lewis like you, just not high of him being better than Dylan Sampson. But it's going to be Peyton Lewis, guys. I love Deshaun Bishop. He's got a ceiling. At the end of the day, Deshaun Bishop has a ceiling, and I think he's already hit that ceiling. And it's just he doesn't physically have the body to be better than what he's done, honestly. And I mean, it's sad to say.
Are you sure we're not going down the Travis Stevens route here?
Travis Stevens also had a ceiling. It's just Travis Stevens ran behind the most massive, best run blocking line in maybe Tennessee football history.
Well, I'll go on record from people I've talked to and what I've seen. I think Peyton Lewis will be the best running back Tennessee has had since Alvin Kamara.
But see, what are you talking about? Dylan Sampson's better than Alvin Kamara.
I think Peyton Lewis is going to be better than Dylan Sampson.
Well, okay, then you will just say he's going to be the best running back Tennessee's ever had. Because Dylan Sampson, to this point, is now the best running back Tennessee's ever had. He broke every record this past year.
Yeah, but they play extra games, and that's the only guy.
He broke those records in 11 games.
Okay, but they played Kent State and Chattanooga. I mean, let's be frank. I mean, it's the stats are the stats, but usually they like a stable of 2 or 3 running backs. They had a stable of basically 1 that played 80%, and Deshaun Bishop who played 20%. I think that you're going to see Peyton Lewis carry the ball 70%, and Bishop will be your changeup 30%. Regardless of who's the leading rusher, they need to do some creative stuff at that position, whether it's screen passes, end arounds, or I don't know. But there's some things that they could do that I think would help those players have success immensely. But we say all this, the interior of Tennessee's defensive line or offensive line was a huge strength last year. Probably won't be this year. So I'm not sure that Peyton Lewis will ever reach the numbers that Dylan Sampson will, but I'll tell you this, I think that he will be the better running back. What the H today brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
All right, Caleb, who will be the better running back long term? And I'm including the NFL. Is that Dylan Sampson or is that Peyton Lewis?
Well, when you throw that in, I would probably go Peyton Lewis. Peyton Lewis has a better NFL body, more of an NFL prototype running back. Although Dylan Sampson could be an Alvin Kamara in the NFL, so got to be careful with that. But I think Peyton Lewis could be like, we're talking like potentially Saquon Barkley, right? So in that realm, you would say Peyton Lewis. But at the same time, but that's why I go going to college, I'm still going Samson, because again, Foster had a better NFL career than Hardesty. I think we all thought Hardesty was the better running back at Tennessee. I don't know how you thought about that, but Hardesty ran harder than Foster at Tennessee.
Overall, a more valuable teammate, but injuries certainly, and I think I've told you this before, injuries undermine his career. I remember asking him, how's your knee? And he goes, which one?
Right. No, I know that story, but I mean, in general too, though, Arian Foster, we all would have agreed, was a better back in general. It's just Montario Hardesty was a harder player. And the same with Travis Henry versus Jamal Lewis. I mean, you can go back through history. There are just players that ran harder than other players, and you kind of respect that to a certain degree. So maybe in the early 90s, didn't James Stewart run harder than Charlie Garner during that time?
Charlie Garner was a really hard runner.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah. I thought he was a really hard runner. I thought he was the most talented of that group, frankly.
Well, I knew Garner was the most talented. But yeah, it's just kind of, I can't look past how hard Samson ran, and I love those guys that run hard. And I never saw Hardesty. The reason I've always been a fan of Montario Hardesty, I never saw him go out of bounds. He always wanted the extra yard. It felt like.